Okay, a really, really special opportunity. A lot of you I know, a lot of you I don't know. I appreciate if you say hello once in a while. Hi, everyone. Um, Pesach night is the night of the year, of the Jewish calendar year. There is no other night that across the Jewish spectrum is as meaningful. The Vilna Gaon writes that there's more mitzvahs on the first night of Pesach than there are any other day of the year. And it's clear to me that because of that, the opportunity of growth for yourselves and the people who are by the Seder is larger that night and then than any other day and any other time of the year. So to walk into a Pesach unprepared would be tragedy. So I'm just going to give you what I think, at least, is one of the more important messages that really are seen throughout the entire Pesach night Seder. And hopefully I won't steal anyone's Dvar, but just a general theme, I think, that's really there. If you were to try to label, Rabbi Elbaz just mentioned the concept of hashkacha pratis, knowing every single part of history and our lives is very much dealt with by Hashem's immediate intervention. The Pesach Seder has a duality to it in the sense that that is one major point, hashkacha pratis, or maybe we could broaden that to the terminology of Emuna, belief in Hashem and his relevance to every single little part of our life. And after we really have that feeling strong in our hearts, the ensuing feeling that will bring you to is appreciation. Hakaras hatov. A thanks to Hashem that He gave us this unbelievable opportunity to be a Jew, to be so relevant, and literally the point of the entire world is just for us to be around. Every single thing that's going on is just to make us living better and closer to Hashem. This is what I would say, these two ideas, Emuna and Hakaras hatov, and appreciating things that Hashem has done for us, are the central theme of the whole Pesach Seder night. Parenthetically, the Rambam says if someone wants to have Emuna in Hashem, he wants to believe in Hashem, what should he do? He should go out in the world and look at all the amazing things that are there. So one might say it's just because you see tremendous things. But it could be another element of that is you see how tremendously impactful these things are to our life. And when you realize how much it impacts me and how much is there for me, that brings you to the step of appreciating that, hakaras hatov. These are two inseparable things. Recognizing Hashem, the Emuna in Hashem, belief in Hashem, and at the same time, appreciating Hashem. I don't know if this is why it says on the board, but chametz, as opposed to every other avera there is in the Torah, there is a shear normally. There's some type of measurement about the amount that you're not allowed to eat according to the Torah law. When it comes to chametz, you're not even allowed to have a teeny morsel. And I think it fits very well with this theme because every single drop of everything that goes on in the world is complete divine intervention. And that's the message that we're trying to continuously reiterate over Pesach, which is every little thing makes a huge difference. On Pesach, even the smallest bit of chametz could ruin everything. We start off the Pesach Seder. There's 15 steps to the Seder. There's a process that we go through, and we all go through this process together, everyone at the table. It starts with a cup of wine. The most important part of the Seder is what's called Magid. The Magid is when we talk about the whole redemption of going out of Mitzrayim. The beginning of Magid starts off with, I'll just quickly bring you through the first 4 steps. You do Kaddish, is a cup of wine, then you wash your hands, vegetable into salt water. Next thing is, first time we touch our matzah. Take a matzah, we crack it in half. 2 pieces, I don't know why, everyone for some reason cracks it evenly, but one's supposed to be bigger, one's supposed to be smaller. You take the bigger piece, put it away, smaller piece, you hold it up and you say, Ha lachma anya. This is the bread of affliction. Why do we have to pick up the piece of matzah and say, this is the bread of affliction? Just, we know what it is. We know why we're eating matzah. Halachmania. This is the bread of affliction. The next stage of Magid, we start asking questions, answering it 4 questions. Everyone's familiar with the 4 questions. We answer it. We talk about the whole thing. We went to Mitzrayim. A lot of talk back and forth. More boring parts of the Haggadah. Then we get to the crux. The crux of Magid is, you say 3 words, magic words. Pesach, matzah, mar. Those are the most important words of the Haggadah. You have to know why we had a korban Pesach. You have to know that there's matzah and that there's mar. And each one of those things, when we explain it, we say Pesach, we don't say zu, we don't point to it because there is no korban Pesach, unfortunately. Mitzvah Hashem, we will have one. We say matzah zu, we point to the matzah, and again we say mar zu, we point to the mar. And each time, and you'll see this happens over and over throughout the Haggadah, where we're pointing to things and giving examples. And this was something that bothered me for a long time, and I'm going to say a very long story, very short. A Rabbi of mine, my Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi once had a story where his home was broken into by, he's a 6'2" man, by an even larger man than him, and he held a gun to his face. You could imagine. And every year, he would recount the story about how he wrestled this person, he wrestled the gun out of his hands, and eventually got to a hammer and smashed him on the head with a hammer. Pretty cool story. I don't want to get into the details. Anyway, so one year, when I was 20 years old, one year he said over the story, he always said it over Friday night, Parshas Miketz, if I remember correctly. One year, he said the story, he's sitting at the head of his table in his house. I was sitting literally right next to him. And on the table, a lot of Talmidim were all sitting around the table. And on the table, there was like a few very random things. It was a normal Friday night, like oneg, so there's popcorn or whatever. And then there was like a hammer. Everyone figured what that was. And there was a plate and a knife and a few other things on the table. And he started saying over the story. And he said, I was sitting over here, my son Aaron was sitting over here, my wife was sitting there. I told my son Aaron to go out into the kitchen and go around the bend over there to my study to get his Dvar Torah. He came back, and as he came running back, I heard loud thumps. And I realized something was up. And he turned the corner, my son, and he says, there's a man with a gun, I promise. And the Rosh Yeshiva says, I jumped up. He's a very large 6'2" man. He says, I jumped up and I lunged towards the door. And all I saw coming around the corner was a gun. And I ran and I caught the gun and I started wrestling with him. And then he said, and he started explaining, we wrestled into the kitchen. We went over there, and you see, like I was trying to back him into the counter and like knock him out. And he said there were this whole, you see that plate on the table? There was a whole set of these plates on the table, and they all fell off. That's the only one we have left. And we were wrestling back and forth. And he said, I got to the kitchen drawer where I knew there was a knife. And I was trying to get my hand into the drawer to take out that knife. Can you give me that knife? And he takes the knife. I'm sitting right here. And he says, I just wanted to take the knife and stab him in the neck. And I was sitting right next there, and my heart was beating so hard. I was so nervous. And he said, I couldn't find the knife. And then eventually we hit the corner, and I took the hammer and I hit him on the head, and that's the whole story. The next morning, I was in yeshiva for 20 years of my life. At that point, I used to have in yeshiva every week. The yeshiva was always there for Shachars. That next morning, he missed Shachars. I went to visit him afterwards, and I said to him, is everything okay? He said, no, I am completely knocked out. I said, why? What happened? And I thought it was just because I was sitting next to him. But he said, last night when I said over the story, I felt it like it happened again. I had just wrestled with that guy again. I just did everything again, and it felt so real to me. I just didn't have the strength to get up this morning. I was so knocked out. He was an older man. And it hit me later on that that's exactly what we're doing by the Pesach Seder. Just recounting things, oh, this is what they used to do, and this is what happened, and whatever, and not feeling it to the point where we pick up the matzah and say, this is the exact same matzah that they ate in Mitzrayim. a little crispier, a little softer. It doesn't make a difference. This is the matzah. This mar is that feeling. And if you don't feel it that right way, that you really get into it to the point where you really feel like I've just experienced leaving Mitzrayim, if you don't get to that point, then you haven't really done what you needed to do by the Seder. But what happens when you do? When you feel that, and you feel like how lucky we are to be the chosen nation, that Hashem took us out of all the goyim and everything that's going on in the world, and we are special, what's the next thing you're going to do? You're going to sing Hallel. You're going to say, thank you, Hashem, for such an amazing opportunity. And that's exactly what happens. Starts off with Magid, and you say, this is what happened, and this happened, and you talk about matzah and mar, etc. And then the next thing that happens is you say Hallel. And when you say Hallel, that's your expression. You're giving over the things to Hashem. Just to finish off, the Chacham, there's 4 sons, they ask questions. The Chacham says, what's going on? Why do you guys do this, that? Why do you do all these halachas? And you answer him another halacha. You tell him there's a halacha called Ein Maftir Nachar Pesach Hafi Kaimin. The halacha is after you eat the korban Pesach, you don't eat anything else afterwards. Meir Shiva said beautifully, he said, the Chacham is an intellectual. He just thinks, tell me another halacha, I need to hear more, I need one other Dvar Torah, another thing. And you tell the guy, you tell him, listen, it's not all about halachas. You got to feel it. You got to leave that taste in your mouth for the rest of the night. Why is it that you can't eat anything after the korban Pesach? Because that taste has to linger within you for eternity. So what we're looking for by the Pesach Seder is not just a lot of Divrei Torah and not just a lot of understandings. It's a feeling that we have to really prepare ourselves for. And when we do that, that feeling will gush over to the people around us, Bez Hashem, and it'll be an inspiring night for us, our families, and for everyone else around us.